Hello, hopefully my audio is okay. I am in a different truck and hauling ass. So I gotta deliver north of Memphis, Tennessee, and it's a long drive. So I was hoping somebody would want to hop on here and give me some conversation. You got your hash pipe, okay. Um, Good song. I posted a link out there if you want to hop on. Anyways, I'm just kind of tired. Let me adjust my headset. Okay. Anyways, I'm kind of tired, and I've been up all day trying to get everything done. I wasn't able to cook anything. I had a meal planned out that I was gonna cook for my channel, and time just ran out, and there just wasn't enough time. When I make the dough, I gotta let it rise and proof, whatever you want to call it, and it's not like I can just throw it together, but it's basically boat bread. You make the dough, kind of roll it out in an oval shape, and fold the sides up, twist the end, fill it with cheese and butter and an egg that's not extremely well done, but it's pretty cool. Don't know if you've ever had that before. Anyways, I'm not watching the chat real close. Every once in a while, I'm looking at it because it's really dark and I'm driving really fast. So at least somebody's up. So, the smoke, how are you doing? Oh, what you saw me make were kolaches. And those are awesome too. I'm trying to figure out how to make a more diabetic friendly version of those. And that's just kolache dough, which is doesn't have any egg or anything in it. And I put some lemon zest in there. Roll them out into little balls, and you can use just a cup or something and squeeze it down flat to make a area to put your filling. And farmer's cheese is a good filling if you know how to make that or can get a hold of it. If not, most people just use cream cheese and a little powdered sugar, and then add that with my favorite ones aren't really traditional. They're blueberry. More traditional would be poppy seed filling or apricot, or of course farmer's cheese, what have you. And then I add a little kind of my own touch to it. I put a strudel crumble over the top and a little powdered sugar. So all that sugar, it's not exactly diabetic friendly. This one that I was gonna make though, that's not really Czech food. Kolaches are. This one, it's Slavic food. but it's traditionally Georgian, but a lot of people make it. And it's basically bread filled with cheese and an egg and butter, and you break off the bread and you dip it in there, and it's just gooey, wonderful goodness. I've got everything to make it. I can't pronounce the traditional cheese that goes in it, but you can use like a pound and a half of mozzarella and mix in there about a half a pound, 8 ounces of um, oh, what's that crumbly cheese? Feta. You can mix that in with it, and that's pretty good. And that's probably what I was going to do. Oh, yeah. Hey, Mad Sexy, how are you doing? There's a link out there if someone wants to hop on. Basically doing a chat for, well, of course I need view time, but something to do to stay awake because I've been off all day, or I've been up all day taking care of business, and now I have to drive from the east side of Houston, which I've already left. I'm cutting through the woods, up to north of Memphis, Tennessee, and drop this load off. They wanted it there at 9. There's no way I'm going to be there at 9. That's just not going to happen. My boss wanted me to reset my hours, which is all the time that I really. I generally work, well, it's not that I work 120 hours a week, because we can only log 70, and yes, we work more than 70 hours. That's just what goes on a logbook. But you're away from home and at work for like 120, 130 hours a week. And then you're home for what amounts to about 30 hours, 31, because, I mean, you've got to unload everything out of your truck, put it in your car, do all your paperwork, then it's like an hour drive home, and then you gotta load everything back up, put it in your truck, and then start your clock because you don't want to burn up too many of your hours doing things that aren't making money. Constitutional Carpenter, hello, how are you doing? And y'all can let me know how my audio is. I've been working on that a bit. Hopefully this headset does better. I can do more chats. I was talking on my last one where if I can get this headset to work how I want it to, I can use my phone as one camera and have that set up probably over the counter where I can show where I'm fixing everything, you know, the dough and what have you. Depends on what I'm fixing. So if I'm fixing soup or something like that, I'm usually starting with like some kind of oil or butter and like an onion or garlic, or I'm fixing a roux. And a lot of the stuff I fix is either going to have a roux, garlic, onion, or all three. Most of it, all three. But anyways, I can turn the volume off on the computer and just have the volume going through the phone or, you know, the mic, what have you. And I could talk on that through the phone and have the computer set up where it's looking over the stove. and I could do it that way and be able to go back and forth. But then I'm going to have to figure out how to switch camera views. I can do the split screen, but I haven't figured out how to do the like switching the view. How am I doing after my accident? My arm still hurts. Well, my left arm is pretty much healed. My right arm, the shoulder still hurts. I can only bring it up so far. And my leg still has an open wound on it that's closing. That's from the right peg. Basically where it left the leather of my boot, it went right into like the calf of my leg and it ripped everything open. And then it didn't want to heal and it got infected and I got that cleared up. And at some point I'll probably get cleared to drive, which is hilarious because I'm driving, but I don't have much of a choice. It's one of them things, my boss is like, can you help me out? Can you do this? Okay, I come in, I help out. One thing leads to another, and I really, really need the money because I've got a son that's trying to go to school. He wants to be a firefighter, EMT at the moment. I've got my cars, of course, the Harleys, and I've got a house. I just put an AC in last year, brand new AC because the air conditioner was way too old and no one would work on it. The air conditioner was basically as old as I am, and so it's from the 1970s, and just liability, no one would touch it, so I replaced the furnace and the air conditioner, the whole thing. All the lines, drops, all of it. And then this year I had to put a new roof on my house because of my homeowner's insurance. If I didn't put a new roof on the house, they would no longer insure my house. So I had to go ahead and do that, and which means, that takes up a lot of your money. And then being off work for over a month, basically a month and a half off work, you go through your funds, and I was very fortunate that between YouTube and the St. Christopher Foundation and what money I had put back, I was actually able to cover my bills. So if any of y'all have donated, I greatly appreciate that. It got me through. I usually use my Patreon for things that I need for cooking. Buying cheese, or if I need a utensil or flour, stuff like that. That's what I use my Patreon for. But last month was something out of the ordinary, and I had to use that. Guns and Barbecue did a fundraiser for me that helped out tremendously. And then there was the St. Christopher Foundation, which they don't pay everything. They don't pay medical bills, but they'll help out with utilities in your house. But it's not like they're going to pay all of it. They look at what's wrong. They've got limited funds, and they'll approve you for so much. And they paid 2 of my bills for me, and that's better than nothing. That's awesome. They're completely funded by donations. If any of y'all want to look them up, they are at truckersfund.org. They help anyone with a Class A CDL. They help my uncle out when he got COVID and was in the hospital for 3 months. And they paid for his motel and everything because he doesn't have a home. After his last ex-wife, his third one that he technically never divorced, she eventually passed away, but when they split up, he just said the hell with it, threw everything in his truck, and he's lived in a 97 Peterbilt since about 2004. But now he can no longer drive. So that's interesting. Let's see. Reading the chat here. Mine costs more than $9,000. You're only a Class CM. Mine is a Class AM. I made the joke at the DMV that I could only drive in the morning, and the lady had no sense of humor. It's, well, the way Texas does it, it's a class of license. It's not an endorsement, where as some states, your motorcycle is an endorsement. You have your M endorsement to go with your A or C or what have you. Well, in Texas, it's a class of license. So you have like a CM or an AM or a BM. I'm sure somebody has that. Yeah, DMV has no sense of humor. But I can say that that is the one thing that COVID improved was the DMV. I mean, especially anything to do with the CDL. You always had to get out there at like 4 o'clock in the morning and get in line, and they only did so many a day. And it just ruined your whole day, and you're just waiting forever. And it sucked. I'm sure with any other license it was the same way. It just sucked. And now you make an appointment, and you show up like 30 minutes before your appointment. They take you in, you sit down, you get in and out, and you're in and out of there in under an hour. And I have no complaints. I mean, it's literally the one thing that COVID improved, the whole COVID lockdown thing. It took locking down the whole country to make the DMV run efficiently. And that is crazy. But anyways, it's me in the truck and my dog. We're driving. Well, I'm driving. He don't drive. I had a beagle for a long time, and I found this rubber newspaper toy for her that looked kind of like a logbook. And so that was her toy. That was her logbook. And sometimes I'd have her get that for the DOT officers. And I'd tell her, you know, get your logbook. And she'd get her logbook, and she'd bring it up to the front for the officer. And if they had any kind of sense of humor, they thought it was cute. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. You can usually tell pretty quick what kind of mood the officer's in. Most of the time they're okay. Sometimes they're not. They're just all business. And who knows what they had to deal with before. Because there's, especially young drivers, they'll believe all the bullshit that other drivers tell them. and then they get pulled over and they find out it doesn't quite go that way. And I'm sure those officers have to deal with that. And I mean, just who knows what they had to deal with before they pulled you over. I have found that state troopers are generally a different class of officer. They're generally professional. They'll write you a ticket, but it's not like getting pulled over by a city cop or a county sheriff. City cops usually don't know what the hell they're doing. And county sheriffs, some of them think they're DOT and they're not. And well, they'll be like they're DOT certified, but they're not FMCSA certified. There's only so many tickets they can write you, so many things they can look at. And some of the bigger cities have city cops that are, well, all cops are DOT certified. They have some of them that are FMCSA, some of them aren't. And they'll get dressed up like stormtroopers or something, and they're trying to intimidate you. They got their combat boots on and their fatigue pants and all that. I pissed one of them off. I said, "You really want to terrify me? Get an old greasy pair of coveralls that look like you've been under a truck and stand out there with the creeper. That will terrify every driver that comes through here." Yeah, CHP ain't a joke. You get out in California. There was one guy, I can't remember the road, I want to say like 46 and 99, somewhere like that. I used to cut through there coming from like LA and going up to Salinas and all that. But whether you're coming from Tehachapi or you're going up over Grapevine, you go up there, you'd hang a left, and it's that next road before you turn right, because you got, I can't remember the names. It's been a while since I've been in California, but the state trooper would be pulled off in the dirt over on the left, right before you make your right-hand turn. And what I can say about him is he wasn't biased or prejudiced or anything. He finished an inspection. The next truck he saw, he pulled in. And he was like the hardest working officer in California. And he's out there in his coveralls, he's got his creeper, and he just did inspections all day. You know, I've got some stories from some of the other scales, so they're kind of funny. Fine Ape, how are you doing? And hello, PNW Woods. Now I'm getting blinded. I can't see the thing. Fine Ape, my leg is doing better. It's once I got the infection and stuff cleared up, it's starting to heal. It's still open. I still have to doctor it. Still have to put all kinds of crap on it and wrap it up and wear support hose. Old grandmother, you know, is what it is because of the swelling, like an old babichka or babushka. That depends on which part of Eastern Europe you're from. But it is what it is. I can walk around now without a cane, so no more walker, no more crutches. I do have the cane because if I have to go too far, I still take it. Um, it's getting there. My wound care appointments have gone to every other week instead of every week. So that is good. And the surgery doctor, I think, is once a month now. Yeah, they can be assholes, but they're professional assholes. They don't usually try to pull the stuff that the county sheriffs and the city cops try to do. Not usually. Inspectors are the worst of them all, like especially someplace like California, because they're not cops. And they act like they're cops, and the state troopers hate them, which sometimes can work to your advantage. Where, like one time, I got a level 1 inspection at Banning over on the westbound side. And the guy inspects the whole tractor trailer. He pulls me in the bay all the way over to the right, and then he looks at the bills and says, "Oh, this is hazmat." I'm like, "I've got 4 placards on each side of the trailer." I was hauling a UN 1092 stabilized acrylium. So you got your bolt placard, you got your inhalation hazard, then you've also got a flammable and a dead fish. And so he acted like he's autistic or something. Started the inspection over again, headlights, turn signals, all that. Well, he had already wiggled my lines, checking them out. And so when I stepped on my brake, of course, if you know anything about a truck, the blue airline is your brake line when you step on your brake. The red airline is the one that is just putting air to the trailer and it's keeping your spring brakes and stuff released. So I step on my brake and air goes out everywhere. He wants to write me a ticket for it. He filled out the form. And I wasn't going to argue with him because that's not going to lead anywhere good. I'm like, okay, I'll get a new rubber for it. So I get a rubber out of the side box, the Glad hand rubbers. I replace it. He's happy with that. And then when I got into the building, I told the state trooper what happened. So he changed it to a violation that did not go against my CVSA score. And he changed it to fixed in bay. And he gave me my sticker for passing because it was fixed. And I thought they were going to write the guy a ticket because he was so pissed off. When he left, he lit his wheels up leaving the scale house. So sometimes you can use that to your advantage. It depends on the county sheriff and what it is. Like, handguns, stuff like that, sometimes the county sheriff is better. Sometimes the county sheriff's better when it comes to trucks. But then sometimes there's like a select group of assholes that you just do not want to deal with. And they're just collecting revenue. That's sort of their job. I know, like City of Houston, especially if you have a carry permit or anything like that, the city cops are not exactly gun friendly. There are a few that are, but a lot of them aren't. And the county sheriffs are a whole lot better. But the actual city of Houston, which they annexed all these areas that aren't really Houston. They used to be small towns, they're not anymore, like Humble. City of Houston annexed Humble, they annexed Kingwood, everywhere else. And when I was little, you drove from Houston to Conroe, there was farmland, there was pastures, there's cows. That's not there anymore. But everybody kind of moved out of the city of Houston, which I think is kind of the same story of any major city. Anyone who might have a leaning to be pro 2A or slightly conservative or anything like that. They all move out to the suburbs, and then they move a little bit further and a little bit further. So all those people live in, like, Montgomery County or Liberty County or what have you. They moved out, well, even some in the outskirts of Harris County. It's like they're in Humble and Kingwood and the Woodlands and Tomball and Huffman, Crosby, all those areas. And the actual city of Houston inside the loop. And it's not really even, just Loop 610. It's like anymore you get inside of, like, Highway 6, 1960. It's like that blue keeps spreading. So, and there's my gear. I'm not really a Republican or a Democrat. I'm more libertarian. But just the voting policies tend to go that way. Uh, Seattle, that Flying J up there, they cleaned it up, 20 years ago. That place was, the lot lizards would help you back your truck in, Wasn't exactly a good place. Hadn't been there in a while. Usually when I go to Seattle, I'll stop at that TA over by Snoqualmie. And I've went over Snoqualmie so many times where there's like a car sliding sideways beside you, and you're just hoping they don't catch traction. Because they're going to go right into the side of your trailer if they catch traction. But if I'm in that area, I would usually either stop at that TA. Okay, hopefully that cop doesn't have a problem. The light changed as I was making the turn. I'd stop down at the Pilot down by Tumwater, I think that is. Or there's an old truck stop down in Portland. Can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. They used to have signs for it all across the country, so many miles until you get there. I'd stop down there in Portland. Although stopping where the TA and the Flying J, all that stuff is down there by Portland, there's a strip mall close to it that you can walk to if you need to do shopping, find clothes, stuff like that. That's pretty convenient. So, yes, I'm driving down the road, talking on a headset. I'm always talking on a headset. So, yeah. I was hoping to get somebody in the chat. I posted a link up there, like that I could talk to. And I don't know, just someone to talk to, something. Try to stay awake. So if any of you want to hop on, that would be awesome. I'll probably post another link here in a minute. I'm not even in my truck. One of the headlights went out on it, and they replaced the headlight. It's one of the weird ones that has like the big block at the end of it. And the headlight still didn't work. So they think it's the ballast, and nobody had the ballast. So I had to take the beater truck. It's an old Kenworth. I believe it's a T600. It runs. It's got a lot of power. Oh, I'm safe. I'm just talking. You're too fun. You ain't the only one. I'm getting older. That don't mean any prettier. Boring anymore driving a truck. There was a time when there was plenty of people to talk to. You'd hop on the CB. You'd get in a line of trucks. You'd leave like Barstow, California. You'd stop for fuel, what have you. And this is when we had paper logs, obviously. And you wouldn't get tired until everybody kind of split off over around Memphis and people went down, you know, some people would split off like Oklahoma City going up 44. Then you'd split off again. Like you're going down, what is it, 78, you're going to Atlanta. And all of a sudden the CB would get quiet and it's like the sleep would hit you. So you had to find some place to park. The sleep would hit you hard. I've made those runs coast to coast. Oh yeah, this one ain't got none of the emissions or none of that stuff on it. They can barely hook up a computerized log to it. So yeah, None of that DEF fluid, which I swear stoners had to come up with that idea. Only a stoner could come up with that. They take urea, it's found in urine, and it's basically horse piss they use for it. They run that through what amounts to a water bong and try to clean the exhaust. You know, I mean, yeah, it's got a filter and stuff in there, like this huge catalytic converter thing that's cleaned out with urea being sprayed into it. But still, it just reminds me it's like a water bong that they're running diesel exhaust through. Stoners, I mean, like some Ben and Jerry's stoners had to come up with that idea. Well, yeah, before the phone, I remember when Snyder and all them came out with their first, they weren't Qualcomms, I can't remember what they're called, but they're like these little computers in the truck, and that was in like 86, 87, because my mom was a dispatcher for international transport, and my stepfather drove for them. They got bought out by Snyder, and they turned them into their flatbed division because they wanted their Canadian authority, which is just the way things go in the trucking industry. And I remember when they had that in there. Early 90s, you had satellite phones, but if you had a phone like that, you really didn't use it much. They were way too expensive. My first cell phone that I bought back in the 90s, I think it was like either 25 or 50 cents a minute. I think it was 25. There was no plan for it. It was just that's what it was. So you really didn't use that much. And everybody had a CB, which let you know there's an accident ahead or what have you. But if somebody broke down on the side of the road, the reason you saw other truck drivers stop and help and what have you was there wasn't a way to call for help. And most people still didn't have all those computers and everything in their truck. A cop would give you a ride to a payphone, that sort of thing. And nowadays, everyone has a cell phone, where when I started driving, everyone had a calling card. Most businesses had Watts lines, 1-800 numbers. So most places you needed to call had a 1-800 number, so you didn't need any change. I found a cell phone. You found a pay phone twice a day, and you called in, told your company where you were at, gave them an ETA, an update on what's going on. And you called your shipper, receiver, you had confirmation numbers, pickup numbers, and addresses, and Randall McNally got you close, and they usually had somebody that could give you directions in from, whatever major road was close to them. They give you directions for a truck. Nowadays, they just ask you, you don't have a GPS? Everybody expects you to have a GPS and a phone and everything else. Just the cost of living keeps going up. You have to have these things nowadays, like, try to find a job without internet. Good luck. I'm sure there's a few places you could, but the internet service has become what the home phone used to be, you couldn't get a loan for a house or anything like that. You had to have a home phone. There's something about it. everyone required that you had a home phone. So you had a home phone. Now all the applications and everything are online, and algorithms decide whether you get the job. I didn't even get on the internet. Your first phone was in 2010. I didn't even get on the internet until like 2008 because I'd never had a need to. And that just was what it was. And thank you for the compliment earlier. I have mirrors, though. I'm not doing good. But you only have two choices. You either get old or you die. And you're eventually going to die. That's universal truth. All of us. Doesn't matter how good your health is or how much money you have, we're all going to die. So I kind of wonder if any animals actually understand that, because they say that's one of the difference between us and animals is we're aware of that, and that these animals aren't. But do we really know that? Who knows? Who knows? Yeah, I saw a paper application today at one place. Where was that? Oh, it was at a restaurant. We ate at the mall because I went to the mall, and we ate at Casa Olay. And they had these paper applications laying out because they're looking for help. I'm like, oh, a fossil. But I thought that was pretty cool. Had to go shopping for specific items, and I don't like going to that mall because they posted all this anti-gun stuff everywhere. But there are some specific stores that I need to go to because I am way too big. One part of that I can't do anything about, and that's my height. I'm working on the other. But I went through the bookstore as well. I was looking for cookbooks, diabetic cookbooks, that sort of thing. I'm trying to get some ideas. The other one basically I was bra shopping. And I had to order one. It's like Walmart's no good for that. When they got the ones in the bag, they go up to like these huge sizes, like the lunch lady special. Those get old. But in 4 to 8 business days, I should have a new one at my house. It sucks to have to special order clothes. Yeah, I wonder what kids are going to do because they've lived basically their whole life with internet. Even my son, he, I mean, he was born in 2003. He's lived his entire life with internet being a thing. So how would they function? I can function just fine without it. I mean, all this internet stuff is cool. The YouTube is cool. That's mainly what I use it for. Most of the time, I'm listening to someone's chat or someone's video while I'm driving, just something to keep my mind occupied. Stay awake because it's a monotonous job. And it's pretty cool. You can look at like other, whether it's gun chats or other cooking channels, and see their recipes, stuff that they do, and get different ideas, and pretty much anything you want. I mean, you want a garden, you can look up stuff on gardening. If you're into prepping and survival, you can find channels for that. If you like guns, you can find channels for that. There's a channel for pretty much everything. Or if something's, your car's making a noise, this is broke, you can look up a how-to video on how to fix it and what's wrong with it. Unfortunately, the gun repair videos aren't really out there anymore because the Gestapo comes after you. Kind of has me worried a little bit. Oh, your daughter was born 12/20/03. Our youngest son, my son, was born in February of '03. Yeah, I could live fine without the internet though. I lived most of my life without it. I entered adulthood where, you had to pay your bills with a check and put them in the mail. Either that or you had to go in person and write a check, and you didn't use a card buying groceries. You wrote a check and they ran it through the machine. And that's another thing. Kids now, they don't know how to fill out a check, which is interesting when they start driving a truck because we use com checks a lot. They have no idea how to fill those out. And there was a time when, your debit card and stuff, banks acted like that was a big deal to hand those out to somebody, almost like they were giving you a credit card. And now it's like just everybody gets one, and it's got a Visa logo, and that used to be a step up kind of thing. You used to just have like the ATM Pulse whatever card. There's no Visa, no anything. It was basically just good for getting money out of an ATM. That was it. And you got charged every time. And then they had people on, the talk shows about how the guy's wife was spending so much money, and one of the problems was she kept going to the ATM for cash, and it charged her X amount of dollars every time, and it added up. And no one even cares about that anymore. Super bad videos. Hello, how are you doing? I'm just having a chat while I'm driving down the road. Trying to keep myself awake, someone to talk to. There's a link up there somewhere if someone wanted to hop in. I don't think my dog wants to talk to me anymore. He's curled up in the passenger seat. I'll see if I can post another link. Without kicking myself out of the chat. There we go. If somebody wanted to hop in. But no, times have changed so much. But really over, I'd almost want to say the last 150 years, things have been changing faster than they've ever changed before. Like that whole industrial revolution thing and all that. And it keeps accelerating. Like it's an algebraic equation now to whatever power it is, or it just keeps getting faster and faster. I knew my great-great-grandmother, and she was born in 1880. And she worked until she was 107, and she died at 108. No, hold on. She worked until she was 106 and died at 107. I believe that's what it was. And the stories that she would come up with were unreal. But she saw so much change. I mean, she was 40 years old before penicillin was a thing. Well, enjoy your sleep, Mad Sexy, and I will be safe, and thank you so much. It is very nice to know that, people care about me, because I think everyone at some point kind of feels like no one cares about them. It's sort of a natural human thing. And it does do good for, I don't know what's the right word for it, morale, what have you, to know that people care. So thank you so much. Oh, awesome. Super bad. Cool. Be nice to have someone to talk to. But anyways, Mad Sexy, get your sleep. I'll be dreaming of sleeping. I've actually done that before. That's when you know you're sleep deprived. When you go to bed and you dream of sleeping. I'm sure there's something Freudian about that. I'm not sure what. But I wish I would have had time to cook, but I just had too much to do, and I have so little time off. And at a certain point, I've got to get them done. I mean, the yard has to be mowed, have to weed eat, and all that stuff. And had to go shopping. There's just certain items of clothing that I definitely need. Had to get my food for the week because, well, there's only so much I can. I try to do meal prepping when I'm home, and usually whatever I cook on the weekend, I meal prep that and I take it on the road with me. But I'm also trying to eat healthier and what have you, because the whole pre-diabetic thing is one of the reasons I've been healing slow. And You gotta have stuff for that. So went grocery shopping, and it was just time eventually ran out. Also got two of my vehicles inspected. I'm not doing too bad if I can say two of my vehicles. I mean, I remember I've lived out of a 79 Mustang and I've lived out of a 72 Super Beetle. So I've got a house and I have cars that are parked there that I'm not living in. So I can't complain. I have hard times, what have you, everybody does. But I'm not homeless again, so there's always that. But got the cars inspected so I can get the registrations for them. And we're supposed to do that online. That's another thing that I guess the internet and stuff helps with. I don't think it was COVID that did that because you could do it before then. And you can also do it at the grocery store, go and get your registration, all that good stuff. But to be able to go online and get your registration sticker and all that mailed to your house instead of having to wait in a line, I do like that. That is always good. My time is so limited. So anything that can save me some time is good. So it's like we wake up, we go get the cars inspected, we take the one car back home because we're not going to be driving two cars around all day. Gas is too expensive. And then we went to the mall, went to the bookstore, went to Lane Bryant and Torrid, and then we went to the grocery store, and then we went home. And of course, by the time we get home, it's like 8 something. So at that point, I'm having to get ready to leave. I was supposed to leave the house at 11 o'clock. That doesn't leave me time for making the dough and letting it proof for like 45 minutes while I make everything else. And what I was wanting to cook would have probably taken me, I mean, it's a real simple recipe, but just the time that it takes for that and then cooking it, it would have taken me about 2 hours. And I had to get all my stuff packed and ready to go. That's another weird thing. I've always got a bag packed. And when I stayed with my grandparents, that kind of freaked them out. But even when I stayed with them, I was working out of town. I had a CDL because we hauled all the equipment that we ran. And half the time I was running a combo then with a construction company. So you'd be in like a dump truck with a trailer behind it and a backhoe, or you'd have a low boy and you'd be moving around like big front end loaders or an excavator. And you're working on a job in like San Antonio and hold on, guess. Okay, that just dropped out. I went to press the thing. Okay, I went to add you. Okay, there it is. Let me see if I can add you again. Okay, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
How you been?
Oh, I'm just driving, going up 59 in East Texas. I've got it. The load was supposed to be in Memphis at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's not going to happen. It was more important to restart my hours than to be there at 9. So hours were restarted, and then I had to take all my stuff out of my truck and put it in this truck so that they could fix my truck. And it's like everything adds a little bit more time. There's always a clock, but I was saying a second ago, I've always had a backpack and ready to go. And when I lived with my grandparents, I was helping take care of my grandmother. She's on hospice. I'd come home on the weekends. I'd take her shopping. I'd help my grandfather with the lawn and everything, help him with the house, and I'd go back to work Monday. And always had a bag, and that would freak them out. And I've still got a bag packed all these years later, but I'm always hopping in and out of a truck. So it's like everybody has their go bag and everything. I've been doing that my whole life. Got first aid supplies in it. Got pretty much everything I need. So
Yeah, when I was
yeah,
younger, I used to ride my bike all over the place, and I carried a backpack, and it would have waters, and, like first aid kit, a bicycle repair kit.
mhm,
I even had like what is it? Those emergency blankets.
mhm.
I had those in there, so like if I'm riding my bike somewhere, because I would ride from where I live to the next town over, and if I had to, for some reason, pull into an orchard and go to sleep, I had something to cover up with,
Uh,
and I had
I've
it. Well, I carried a couple of them because then I could like take some leaves and roll it up in the other one and kind of make like a little pillow.
yeah, I've always got like two big black trash bags in the bottom of my bag for several reasons. You can lay it down, lay on top of it so you don't get wet. You can put one over your bag and one over you like a poncho. There's just a million uses for that. And whenever I get hurt, I'm always miles away from anything in the middle of nowhere, 15 miles down an oil field road, something like that. So you got to have first aid supplies with you, and then you have your clothes, that sort of thing. And of course, I've usually got some kind of carry weapon, that sort of thing on me. And so all these guys, what to put in your go bag and this, that, and the other. Well, in the truck, I've always got spare food and everything. So it's basically like I've lived my life with the go bag. It's
Yeah, like see,
yeah.
where I grew up, there was a lot of agricultural. So there was a lot of cornfields, uh, orange fields, cherries. So like I could just pull over on the side of the road, walk into an orchard and get, some oranges, go, a mile down the road and pick up some pecans or walnuts. So I really didn't carry food with me.
Yeah, well, I've been snowed into rest areas for a week at a time. I've been stranded, broke down. So every vehicle I have has water in it. especially, well, you could use it if, you have to fix a radiator leak or what have you, or it doesn't matter how cold or hot it is. The one thing you don't want to be without is water.
Oh yeah.
And when Cameron was a baby, me and Amy got caught in a flash flood. And I saw the water going up, so I immediately found the highest place that I could. It was in this gas station parking lot. And I got my wheels up on that little concrete bumper thing. And I was the only one that didn't have water in my car. But
Yeah.
you're surrounded by water. And of course, that gas station sold out of everything real quick. Little tiny gas station, they're off 59. And we had no water. So after that, any vehicle that I have has water in the trunk or, behind the seat somewhere. There's water stored in that vehicle. Every vehicle I have has first aid kits in it. And I actually braved the floodwaters and I waited, and some of that water got chest deep. And you're watching for fire ants. You see a log or something going by, don't grab it. It's probably got ants or something on it, and they'll immediately jump to you.
Oh yeah. They're looking
And
for dry ground.
right, right. And my big ass is a big piece of dry ground for them.
My
And
big ass would be too.
yeah. And the other thing is she's 5'2", I'm 6'2", so better me in the floodwater.
Oh yeah, my
I
wife
go down,
is barely 5 foot tall, so it would be me in a flood
right.
situation.
Well, you could go down the road a mile or so and you're out of the floodwater, and people are running business as normal. It's just you couldn't get your car and stuff out of there, and you had to go through all the floodwaters. And I took I went and I got a pizza. And I carried this pizza back, holding it over the floodwater all the way back so that I could bring her hot pizza. It's I was in my 20s. I was stupid, so I don't know. She thought it was awesome. She thought it was romantic and all that, but I don't know. Just
Now
something I did.
in my truck, now I have a case of what is it called? 5 Minute Chef, I think they're called. They're like MREs, but they have everything inside of it. They have water. They have water for the FRH, and then they have the little retort pouches like the MREs have.
Yeah,
So it's like all in one. And it has a little tray that you can put all your food in.
yeah, yeah. They used to have heater meals at the truck stop, and it's like a smaller version of an MRE kind of box. Heats up the same way. Some of them were decent, some of them weren't. I've kept MREs on the truck before. Most MREs aren't bad, and you can kind of spread them out throughout the day. They've got all the calories you need for a full day if you're not doing a whole lot of activity.
Yeah.
The only MREs I don't like are anything with egg. I do not like the omelet. No. The rest of them
Uh,
are okay. The omelet, no.
I really don't like the vegetarian menus, but I do also keep those because if you're hungry enough, you will eat that.
Oh, if you're hungry enough, you'll eat anything.
Oh yeah, I cannot stand Alfredo sauce. Like the smell of Alfredo makes me gag, but I still have those because if I'm hungry enough, I'll eat it.
I
But
don't
yeah,
like Alfredo sauce from a can.
I don't like homemade Alfredo. I don't like canned Alfredo. I just don't like it. I can't stand the smell of it. And when I delivered pizza, we had an Alfredo pizza, and I didn't care if it was pouring rain or not. I had the windows rolled down all the way there.
Uh,
Yeah,
there's one pizza that I actually like that has Alfredo on it, but it's got Alfredo sauce, gorgonzola cheese, artichoke hearts, and onions, mushrooms. It's a vegetarian pizza. And this place I used to go to made it, and that thing was awesome. But yeah, it's some people like something, some people don't, and people's tastes are different. It's kind of like sweet and low. There's actually a genetic component to whether you can taste it or not. So some people put like 6 packs of sweet and low in a glass of sweet tea, and I'm like, that is way too sweet. It's like 1 pack of it, and it's almost over sweet for me. So people's tastes are different.
yeah, it's sweet and low. My mom uses that, and I can't. I'll put just barely sprinkle some in, and I'm like, ooh, this is like way too much.
Right.
And
And then
my mom's over there like dumping like 3 or 4 of them in her coffee, and I just sprinkle a little bit on top of my coffee, and yeah, no, I'm done. I'm good.
yeah, there's the genetic components to it. Trying to pop my neck. Hopefully I didn't mess my headset up.
I
There
wish my
used to be a huh?
I wish my lower back would pop. That would feel good right about now.
Yeah, I could use my upper back and neck. But the town that I'm going through now, there used to be a judge here that I'm related to, but I think he's old enough he should have retired. But I know if you're related to him, you did not want to be in his court because he would make an example out of you. And my mom got a ticket, and they saw her last name, and the cop was like, "Just pay it. You don't want to go to his court." And the guy's like her great uncle or what have you, so he would be like 90 years old or 100, so he should be retired.
And one of my relatives, I'm actually named after him. Well, I'm named after my dad, but my dad was named after him. Uh, Actually, a really famous judge. He has several law schools named after him. But like we're the trashy side of the family, so that side of
Uh,
the family doesn't even acknowledge us.
yeah, there's a wing of a hospital in Pennsylvania named after my great grandfather. He was a doctor in World War I, and he got tuberculosis, and he made it home, but it still killed him. 'Cause, I mean, World War I is about a decade before they really had anything that would really treat that. And there's a part of my family, that part that has money, and they've been here like on both sides of my family. There's like this leg of the family that on my mom's side came over here in 1600, and on my dad's side came over here in 1630. One of them got a land grant from the King of England, and the other one had freight liners, still does, it goes back and forth from Europe to the United States. When the United States then, obviously. And of course, my dad was the black sheep of the family, my biological father, for many reasons. He wouldn't do what they wanted him to, so they never helped him, never did anything, and I never got anything from them or from that. So
Yeah, same thing with my dad's side. My grandpa on my dad's side, he was in the military. He worked for Lockheed Martin. He worked for Boeing. Uh, my dad was a hippie, so literally, his dad brought him to California and just left him and went back to Seattle, Washington. Him and my uncle literally just brought him to California, dropped him off, said good luck, and he went because they were hippies. They were more into, smoking weed, doing drugs, fucking, the whole
my
moon
mom was a
sky.
hippie, and my biological father was a Vietnam vet that got addicted to heroin in Vietnam. Of course, the job he did, they told him that um, if it was squirming, grab that first, which meant it was still alive.
Yeah.
So recovering bodies, basically, and everyone who did what he did basically came back, and they were all addicted to something.
Yeah.
And
I've met a few Vietnam vets, and they would tell me stories. And then, like, one of them, he was to keep him from doing other drugs, he was actually prescribed Oxycontin. And that he would eat it like freaking Skittles.
well, what my dad did was he had two uniforms. He had his military uniform and he had his civilian uniform. And he had two completely different sets of IDs, everything. And he had a briefcase to barter with. And that briefcase was basically cocaine and heroin and little basically aluminum foil packages, kind of like those Andes mints you get from the restaurants and
Yeah.
stuff. And he went places that back then people weren't supposed to know that we were. And of course, all that stuff came out that yes, we were in Cambodia, yes, we were in Thailand. All that stuff came out now. And a lot of the stuff he couldn't even tell anybody about that, came out later. And then the VA's like, oh, yeah, that's what happened. Because, now they can talk about it, then they couldn't. And there's stuff that, he signed that he couldn't talk about. So he never did talk about it. And a lot of the information my aunt was able to get from the VA. And, you're seeing that sort of thing. He was going into those places and buying the bodies back of our soldiers, what was left of them, so that either, the family could get closure or they could get medical help or what have you, and bringing them back. And from what I understand, everyone who did that ended up using the products they were using to barter with because, like everything else, they couldn't use American tax dollars for that, you know?
Yeah.
So they had to find another way to do it. It's like, well, you have the, what do they call that? The French Connection, and then Iran Contra. Would our government run drugs for the cartels to buy arms to give to um, soldiers in the Middle East that we would be fighting 20 years later? Yes,
Yeah.
we
Uh,
would do that.
U.S. government was giving soldiers meth and cocaine because there are still like emergency survival kits and stuff from like World War II, Korean, and Vietnam War that has cocaine, meth as a daily supplement to keep you awake and alert and battle ready. There's a
Well,
guy,
yeah,
yeah, there's a guy who does, MREs and stuff, and he actually had like one of these kits. He was like, "Oh yeah, this is cocaine. We
yeah,
won't mess with this."
yeah. Corman's basically got some methamphetamine with them, that sort of thing. Because they have to stay awake. Their survival at that point depends on it. It's you know they're using it for completely different purposes. Not that they're not going to get hooked on it, 'cause some of them do.
Yeah, I'm pretty
But
sure it went from a necessity to recreational.
yeah, and they get it over there and they give them all kinds of shots. They have no idea what they're getting. Even if they tell them what they're getting, they have no idea what they're getting. It's your government property here, and
Take this, don't ask questions. Tell me how you feel in 24 hours.
right, right, right. But hey, I'm hurting. Here's ibuprofen. Uh, yeah, the flip side of that. But yeah, he was a hippie biker, and between the VA and prison, that's the only reason he lived so long. In and out of prison, getting cleaned up, VA helping him get cleaned up. And God, I think it's like maybe 6 years ago now, he finally got a hold of some that had fentanyl in it, and he overdosed and he died.
I'm not too familiar with fentanyl, but I heard that some people, if they even touch that shit, they like instantly OD.
Right, right.
I don't know if that's true because I don't know anything about fentanyl.
Well, fentanyl is extremely powerful, and it takes very, very little to overdose. So you take someone who's done heroin for, nearly 50 years, and they get a little bit of that and they die. So I'm not saying doing the heroin was good, but,
Yeah, no.
you know, that was what it was. And at a certain point, you're not going to clean someone up. And when he did clean up, he went to the alcohol, and then he'd go back to the heroin, and then he cleaned up, and then the alcohol and the heroin. And I've got some of his writings and stuff from when he was going through AA and all the steps and everything they had to write down. And I think some of that was court ordered, that sort of thing. And he'd get arrested because he'd get mad. He'd just go walk down the road, and some dumbass would call the cops on him. Just leave him alone. And then the cops show up, and he doesn't want to talk, and he ends up in a fight with the cops. Then he goes to jail again.
Yeah,
And
I,
his whole
I
thing was, what are you going to do? Shave his head and send him to Vietnam? He didn't really care. I've met a lot of vets, especially Vietnam era vets, that kind of have that attitude, like, what can you do to them? Shave their head and send them to Vietnam? They've already been. They no longer give a fuck.
right. They've been there, seen that, got the T-shirt.
Right. You know, and a lot of the drivers, like when I started driving in the 90s, those guys were in their 40s. They were the experienced drivers that were training my generation of drivers. You know, so I knew a lot more of them. Of course, that's my parents' generation. And, you know, my mom was like, if you can remember Woodstock, you weren't there, sort of thing. My mom got in a whole lot of trouble for that because she went. And my grandfather, and it's weird, you know, it's white people aren't the only people that are racist. And I think my grandfather tried to be white his whole life. That grandfather did on her side, and or her father. But he didn't look white. He had enough Indian. He didn't look white.
I
And huh?
I could tell you from experience that the most racist people are Chinese, Japanese, Hmong, uh, Korean. They are the most racist people. They're even the most racist people to their own people.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Um, but anyways, of course, 1968. We're talking civil rights era, all that kind of stuff. 68, 69, something like that. I can't remember when Woodstock was, but it was, you know, civil rights era. And my mom's this hippie chick. And she comes home. Her friend was going through beauty school. And, you know, for a grade and all that stuff before she goes home, her friend basically gave her a big silver afro. And she comes home with that, and my grandfather thought she was in some kind of march or something. And he just went ballistic. You know, I've got a lot of relatives that never said they weren't racist. You know, it's
I have a lot of relatives that they'll sit there. They
yeah,
don't care. They don't care who you are, what you are. They'll just go off on like racist tangents, that racist jokes.
yeah. Those used to be so much more prevalent. You know, that stuff you would hear at school. You even hear a teacher say it, and you know, you can watch some of the old TV shows and read between the lines what they were saying, and it's like, okay, I mean, even in the '80s, a lot of the racist stuff was just accepted, you know, and then you know, even racist stuff against, like, in a way it's racism, in a way it's like an ethnic thing against like the other side of my family, which I still hear today, and it's kind of still accepted because you'd have the, you know, the Bohemian Polak jokes and stuff. Well, the Czech Republic is Bohemia, you know.
Yeah,
Number one, it's kind of a little bit ignorant. You know, it's okay. Poland is here right next to it. You know, and some dumb Polak, you know, talk about Slavs, and you hear, you know, truck drivers complaining about all these Eastern European drivers coming over here. You know, the same as people talking about Mexicans taking their jobs. You know, and so you still hear all of that. And it's like, okay, my other grandmother was born near Prague in what was this new country at the time called Czechoslovakia. Before that, before World War One, that was the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And you have, you know, Bohemia, Moravia, and all those places where, you know, they combined Bohemia, Moravia, and one other, I think, to make Czechoslovakia. And now, of course, Bohemia is the Czech Republic, and Moravia is Slovakia. Slovakia, by the way, has the reputation of being the most racist country in Europe. And yeah, I've got a grandmother that was born there. So listen, you know, how people talk about that. And, you know, the other side, they're just a bunch of rednecks.
yeah.
And yeah,
I got
it's,
I got family that are straight hillbilly. I mean, If you watch the old school Beverly Hillbillies, that's them, like straight hillbillies, and
Yeah.
they're very they're very blunt, and they had came down for a funeral, and we all went out to a restaurant to eat, and they were very vocal in the restaurant about their feelings.
Oh yeah. Um, I did a lot of my growing up in Northeast Oklahoma at a time when it was like going 20 years in the past. And of course, this is before everybody had cable and all that. And you had to go to like Tulsa or something to see someone who wasn't either white or Native American or a mix of both. You didn't see black people. They have black people there now, but they didn't then. There were no Mexicans or anything like that. And Native Americans, yes, they are racist too. Every race is racist. I think every person is to a point, and whether they realize it or not, I think
I,
there's some kind of genetic thing in there to that.
I believe everybody's racist because everybody looks at somebody else and they're like, "Oh yeah, this person is going to do something."
Right. Well, through 99.99999, carry that however long you want, percent of human history. If you saw someone who did not look like you, nothing good was going to come of that. You know, whichever civilization or group of people had the better technology was probably going to wipe out the other one. And then there's disease and stuff that got brought along with it, like, Columbus and the Native Americans, which disease wiped out most of the natives before Europeans really got here.
Right.
That they had brought, or even one tribe versus another. You had wars against people from a different clan from 20 miles down the road. And, it's not necessarily a different race. It could be you're Celtic and they're Viking, you know? So
Right.
it's anyone that was different, you were leery of. And I think there's something in our DNA that's like a protection mechanism that makes people cautious of anyone that doesn't look like them. And it doesn't matter what race they are. It's you don't look, the same. There's like that defense thing. But we're at a point in human history where now we're all connected. And now, we have the brains to be able to see beyond that and to rationalize things and
Yeah.
trying to come to grips with, things that have been done in the past and, trying to move forward like everybody together. People talk about, the United States as the great experiment because we're more mixed than any place else on earth. And well, there's some places in South America that are more mixed, but they're actually mixed. They're um, like, what color is the baby going to be? We don't know, um, because it's like they have so many different races in their DNA at that point. But we have so many different mixes of people living side by side here. But now we're at a point where the whole world is connected. So technically, we're all side by side. And that's kind of a bigger experiment of how this is going to work out. Because, I mean, your children are playing video games with somebody on the other side of the world. And they hop on the internet everyone's connected. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be the same town. So what's going to happen with that? Are we eventually something going to happen and everybody walls off? We get more racist or more xenophobic, or are we all eventually just going to kind of mix and blend together and turn a nice shade of beige or something? Or who knows?
Yeah,
But
I I think like it's not so much racism. It's like you were saying. It's a self preservation. It's built in our DNA, and it hasn't gone away. It's still there.
oh yeah,
It's just like with some animals, you cannot breed out the wild. It's wildness. You can't breed it out. You could keep tigers for generations, generations, generations in a zoo, but it still has that animal instinct. The sneak attack.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well, so does a house cat, but it's just not small. It's not big enough to do anything.
yeah, that's what I think is what our the racism is that instinct, and sometimes people tend to exaggerate that instinct and
Yeah.
let it become them. You know what I'm saying?
Well, a lot of it comes down to as well, like when you look at like in the South where I'm from, the two biggest things were obviously, black people and white people. And it's mainly, you know, redneck, working class people. And we're so connected. And even if you look at the language, like compare Ebonics to the way a lot of people in the South used to speak, there's a lot of similarities, a lot of the same letters dropped and what have you. They're kind of coming from the same place. But it becomes like a fight over resources, which is what it's always been, where you're going for the same job. You're both qualified to do the same job and you both know it. And, the one guy's trying to convince himself that, you know, somehow he's better than this person over here. He deserves this job and he doesn't because he's better, neither one of them's better than the other. It's but they try to convince themselves of that, and then the politicians and everything, they use that to their advantage, and they say, "See here, look at this guy over here. He's taking your job. He's why you can't feed your family." You know, and they'll use that. But in reality, it kind of comes down to resources, where, of course, we're not looking at, water and land and, you know, hunting and stuff like that. Like tribes and stuff would be looking for. We're looking at, there's a job at this factory. There's a better place to live over here, a better neighborhood, that sort of thing. And you essentially got the same education, the same skills. You're on the same platform, and the politicians want they want you competing, and they want to keep that wedge drive between you.
Oh yeah, because the easiest way to conquer a country is to divide its people.
Yeah, they don't want us just divided by race. Race is one of the easiest ways to divide people.
They
They
want
want
us
us
divided by everything, by sexual orientation or sexual preference, whichever word you want to run with, race, religion. Uh,
they want us divided all the way down to the dinner table. They want your kids divided, they want a breakup of the family where, we're not only divided by race, we're divided at the dinner table, the kids from the parents. And I think that's where everything loses control. So, but yeah, any means they can use to divide. And then, like, you look at the coming election, they've already got it set up where, okay, both sides are looking at, protecting the children. And one of them, like the left side, is like they want to protect children from gun violence and what have you. Okay, cool. The right side's wanting to protect children from being aborted, the abortion thing. So you got that. And then you got, what both sides will view as their constitutional rights, where the left is looking at, the a woman's right to choose sort of thing, which it's like they need to study Roe versus Wade because it's actually a woman's right to privacy on very loose grounds. And on the right, of course, 2A's up there real big right now. And it's almost like it's planned where, okay, both sides are like, for the children, and both sides are like, these are my rights. And, they line it up so that they can get their voters behind it. And for the most part, it's like fear tactics. They do have consequences, but they know how to um, instill that fear in their voting blocks. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
I don't like politicians on either side. I mean, my representatives are Ted Cruz and Dan Crenshaw.
Well, California, do I need to say more?
No, you don't.
So,
California, a state that the vast majority of it is actually fairly conservative and gets outvoted by 3 cities.
we get overran by the coastal area.
Yeah.
Like if the coast would fall off at the Grapevine, it'll just fall into the ocean, we wouldn't have as much BS here as we do.
Yeah, from like San Francisco to San Diego, right along the coast.
Yep.
And the rest of the state, that's like just, and I got friends out there. I've took vacations out there. And it's beautiful, but the laws are just insane.
Laws, taxes, on taxes, on taxes.
Yeah. And that children not being able to buy a house thing spreading to the rest of the country through things like reverse mortgages and refinancing and all that kind of thing, where we've got this generation of people now, the hippies and all that a lot of them have this idea of, oh, you never pay off a home. And so, while they've been climbing up and buying another home and buying another one, working their way up, they never pay anything off. So then when they die, they have a home with all this debt that their children can't buy and ends up being sold, to a company that's going to turn around and rent the house out.
Or start the whole process over again, sell it to another person, and then just keep going and going, and then that person's going to pass away, and then it's going to happen again.
Yeah, but that wealth isn't being transferred to the next generation.
Yeah.
That's the biggest, step out of poverty is that generational wealth that, in a large way, in California, a lot of people have lost because, they can't buy a home in California, so they end up moving somewhere else. Huh?
Like the rent around here, what you would pay in rent for a 2 to 3 bedroom house, you could go to another state and buy a house on 1 or 2 acres, 3 acres, 4 acres of land for the same price you're going to spend in rent for a year here in California.
I've got a friend that lives, what's that neighborhood right up there where like the 5, the 405, and all that stuff meet before you get up there where the Santa Ynez Scale is. I think it starts with an R. She
Uh,
lives up there.
Ready?
No, it's not Reading.
Ridgecrest?
No. But anyways, she was bragging about her house, and I was over at her house, and her house is, I think, like $1.5 million, and it's smaller than mine. It's got less land than mine, and I've got a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, the single car garage, not quite an acre of land. I bought it for $60,000. My house note, it used to be $700 a month. Now, because of taxes and stuff going up, it's closer to $800 a month on a house that would be over $1 million in California. You would
My
have like a $2,000 a month house note on it or better.
and my dad, he got lucky. He was smart when the house market crashed here in California. Like it
Hmm.
fucking just crashed out. He bought his house for 65,000.
Hmm.
It's a 4 bedroom, two car garage, 2 bathroom, swimming pool in the backyard, decent sized front yard,
Yeah, I don't have
and
a swimming pool. I
and
want a
a
jacuzzi.
and a a lower upper class, upper middle class area of town, and
Hmm.
he was paying 800. Now it's up to $1,200 for his mortgage payment and whatnot. The
Because the
mortgage,
taxes went up.
the mortgage, taxes, insurance. I think it is because
Yeah,
all of
probably his
his
insurance and the
property tax went up.
taxes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
property taxes went up, and his insurance went up. But
because
it's
most
all
people are.
rolled into one, so he pays it
Yeah,
all.
that's what I did. That's what most people with a brain do. Is you pay it all at the same time with your house note every month, so that you don't have to come up with it at the end of the year.
Yeah,
You know, it just works out better that way. And somebody's on here. Oh, there's a couple people. Bacon. I don't know if you could help me out reading some of that.
hold on.
I don't know how long they've been on there.
Let me get my reading glasses on. Let's see here. We got the chat. We got the goddamn bacon. Talking to
Hmm.
Samantha P. Got Samantha P on here. For liberal states, I'm also in a liberal state, and we are simply overwhelmed by the in the cities here too. Let's see here. Let me go back. Somebody say Ebonics. And Summon. Hey, did it just get dark in here? Oh, that's from Bacon.
Yeah, I'm actually driving down the road, so not watching the chat as close. I do appreciate everyone that wants to join in, and there's a link posted up there somewhere. I can post it again here in a second when I'm not around so many curves. And if you want to hop in, that would be awesome. And I thought I would go live, get some conversation, something to keep me awake because I've been up all day and I have to drive all night.
Yeah, the link is right above Mad Sexy's last comment. It's right above it. So if you scroll back through, mine will be there, and then it'll be Mad Sexy, and then the link's right above that. So if you want to come in, just scroll back up through the chat, and it's right there.
I don't know if they'll be able to see that or not, though, because sometimes if you enter the chat later, you can't go all the way up. It'll only let you go so far. But
Yeah, Samantha says the number one step out of poverty is graduating high school. I graduated high school. I went to college, got my degree, and in California, I'm still considered at or below poverty level.
I graduated high school. Um, I graduated 2 different trade classes, basically, to go to work for one company, driving a truck, even though I already had a CDL and had been driving. I went through their truck driving school, which was done through HCC, and they gave me X amount of hours for that. Basically, it's the equivalent of, what is that, associate science, whatever the hell it is.
Yes.
It's a trade thing, yeah. It's that one for trades. And then I have diesel mechanics, which I got in high school, going to vocational college while I was in school. And I tried to actually go to college, but when I bought my house, I was young and I got an education the hard way, where I didn't get a variable interest on my house, but what they did was they figured my house note down to a point where I could afford it to get me in the house. And at the time, you could get, 2, 3 bedroom apartment for $400 and something. But they figured my house note at like $470 a month because they figured the taxes too low. Like basically, I wasn't paying taxes that first year, and I didn't know any different because I'm like, okay, I can get an apartment for that. And this is back, I'm used to like apartments and stuff in the '90s, and then the next year, when all the back taxes hit, plus the current taxes that I had to pay, my note went from like 470 to about 1200.
That cop just left or what?
Yep. I wonder where your journal went.
I don't know. Pulled up
Yeah,
earlier than I
and
thought here. Oh, sorry. I forgot. I forgot to mute myself. Sorry. Hold on. Give me a second.
yeah. No, basically, I had a $1,200 note at that point for a year, and I had a local job driving a truck. I had a newborn in a new house, and I was getting less than 20 hours of sleep a week, and something had to give, and so the college classes is what gave. Apparently, I passed college algebra half asleep. I didn't even look back to see if I passed. I finished everything. I took my test, and I never looked back until like nearly 20 years later. And I called them up, and I'm like, I'm just wondering, did I pass these classes? Like, oh yeah, you passed. I'm like, okay, cool. So I do have some college, but it's one of them things. If you can knock that out before you have, marriage and house and kids and all that stuff, especially once you have the kids, it's so hard to go back because all your money, all your everything is going into, you know, raising your child, and that doesn't get any cheaper. And that just is what it is. It's okay, I've got to make more money, so there's no college. I saved the house and I didn't lose it and ended up in management, and that drove me crazy. So then went and did my own thing. But yeah, graduating high school, there's just so many doors closed to you without a high school education, or at least a GED. And if you get a GED and at least some college, especially when you get older, a lot of times that looks better than someone who, went and graduated high school and went straight to college, because employers are looking at, okay, you've real world, you've overcame some things. It might not look as good when you're in your 20s, but you get up there a little bit older. You're looking at applications. There's just some things that look better. Then, of course, we also have this new generation of people who can't sign their name.
Right?
And I find that annoying as hell. It, they print their name. And it's just something, I guess, because of my age. I'm not that old. I was born in the 70s. But it still looks like they put their mark on it. It's like, do we have to have somebody else witness the signature or something here? It doesn't look good. Learn how to sign your name, because whoever's looking at that employment app, well, the employment applications now are mostly on computer or whatever. But when you get to a point, whether you're working at a company or what have you, you have to fill stuff out and sign your name. The people that are above you and looking at that are probably older than you and are probably having about the same reaction I do when I look at a printed signature.
Yeah, like this fool doesn't know how to sign the name. I see that uh, uh, on payday at work.
Hmm.
We have to go in the supervisor's office, pick up our check, and we have to sign for it. Well, it says sign, print, and date. And I look at
Hmm.
it, it's signed, or it's printed, and then dated. It's like, well, you're supposed to sign, your signature on there and print your name. But both of them are printed. It's like you don't know how to, sign your name.
Yeah, they
But
don't
I,
even teach them cursive in school now.
but I have a big problem is because none of my signatures are the same. So like sometimes when I go cash my check, I'll sign the back of the check, and then my driver's license has my signature on the front of it, and they look at it and they tell me, "Can you pull around and park and come in?" And I'd actually have to pull around, park, go in so they could hold my ID up next to me and look at me and ask me who signed this check. I did.
Yeah, my signature is pretty consistent. There's been some changes in it over the years, which I think everyone's kind of does change a little bit through the years. But I've never had that kind of a problem.
Like when I bought my truck, signing all those papers, the guy was even going through making sure, everything was signed and dated and all that. And he's in there going through, and then he started going through it again, start going through it again. He goes, "You realize none of your signatures match?" I'm like, "Yep."
I'm just I'm just so used to signing my name real fast, signing bill of ladings and things that, you got to sign your name a whole bunch of times. You get used to it. So I have my signature, it's legible. Then some people get mad when you ask them to print and sign so you can read their name, which is the other side of that. There are people who will sign their name to documents very illegibly, and it's so that basically they don't want the responsibility of whatever's on that document. So I have them print and sign because I want to get paid,
Right?
and the other thing too, the whole school debt thing. My generation, I think, was the first one that got hit with all these school loans, which I don't have any school loans. I paid for all of mine. And credit cards. That I cut up all the credit cards real quick because I think we were the first ones to start getting all these credit cards in the mail when you were way too young. And they would just get maxed out and you could never pay them off. And
Yeah, I think that was my mistake because I had a bunch of credit cards. I mean, a bunch of credit cards when in my 20s. Like I had, my wallet was bloated with credit cards.
yeah, it's like you can't afford to get to work and back. You can't buy the gas. And this is when gas was $1 a gallon. But I mean, when I started working, minimum wage I think was like $3.75, something like that. It was in the $3 range. And Clinton was in office, and everyone was talking about, oh, in X amount of years, minimum wage is going up to $5 an hour. We're all acting like, oh, we're going to make so much money then, at $5 an hour because you're used to getting $3 an hour. And, if you're a waitress or something like that, you got even less. And it's like, if you didn't work on Sunday after church, it wasn't even worth going to work, because you needed the tips. And life was completely different. How much everything costs. But that's every generation. It's like, you listen to your parents and, the jobs they had and what they bought groceries for, back, when they started in the 60s or in the 70s. And it's like, well, they keep devaluing the dollar more and more and everything. But the value of the product has never changed. The value of a loaf of bread still has the same value. The value of a gallon of milk still has the same value. The value of our dollar is what has changed.
There you
You
go.
know,
And
the
it's like
value,
when you get the raise, everything else goes up too.
right. And it's not an exact thing, like it's going to go up this amount because your pay went up this amount, you know, but there's so many things that factor into it. It's not just the minimum wage that's devaluing the dollar. It's not helping it, and the value of an hour of work, you know, digging a ditch is, depending on what you're digging it with, is still going to be the same value. With a shovel, it's not going to be much. With an excavator, it's going to be significantly higher. Fast food worker at McDonald's, the value of that labor is not worth the value of a heart surgeon. There doesn't matter what you do to the minimum wage or any of that. It's just going to be that way. That hasn't changed. I'm sure the value of some jobs has changed, but there's still, your labor is only going to be worth so much. Doesn't matter what number they put beside it, It's
Yeah.
going to take so many hours of running whatever easy bake kind of oven they have at the fast food chain that you're working at to buy X amount of product. You know, so many minutes for that loaf of bread or what have you. They could raise the minimum wage to $30 an hour, and it's still going to take that amount of time because it still breaks down into basically a barter system in the end. You're trading one thing for the other, and you have this little promissory note for it.
Right. You're trading some paper or some metal for something.
Right. So that's another thing they really need to get back to teaching in schools. Civics and economics and that sort of thing. Stop dumbing it down. But I think George Carlin was right. They want people just smart enough to run the machines, but just dumb enough not to question the increasingly shittier pay.
Exactly. And George Carlin was a pretty funny comedian.
Right. And yeah, a lot of the people I listen to are more right wing or what have you, and libertarian. I've got left wing friends and stuff too. I mean, hell, I'm in the queer community, so that's like obvious. But um, and George Carlin was by no means right wing. He was fairly left wing, but left wing for the day, you know. And but still, a lot of the stuff he said it almost sounds like a prophet in context. Him and Bill Hicks. Bill Hicks was from Houston, and it's I guess it's one of them things like great comedians and stuff. Um, their work holds relevancy. It's the same with like a song. Great songs and stuff. It may have been written 40 or 50 years ago, but it still gets you today. You know.
And like you watch some of the old comedians and they're like, oh yeah, just wait, this is what's coming. And everybody's
Yeah,
laughing, because it's to them it's a big old joke. They're like, yeah, right, whatever, bullshit. Ha ha ha.
Bill
And
Hicks
then
talking about smoking.
and then, 20, 30, 40 years down the line, guess what's happening? Exactly what they said and exactly how they said it was going to happen.
Imagine Carlin's, what was it, seven dirty words, which is like shit, tit, piss, asshole, motherfucker, and something else. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. But what you couldn't say, you know. And he actually went to court. He fought for your freedom of speech. And imagine what he would think of the censorship on the internet today and how his act would change. There's a
Oh yeah.
whole lot more that's banned. But of course,
There
they had,
Go ahead.
yeah, they had more morality clauses back then that we don't have now, thank God.
Yeah, just think like a lot of these comedians, the old school comedians, you know, even up into like the 90s, like their shit would not go over right now.
Oh, no, 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 no.
Like
Well, some of the
Ralphie,
black comedians might go over. I mean, uh,
yeah,
Richard Pryor, I'm sure his stuff would go over well.
Richard Pryor, Red Fox.
Red Fox. Okay, people think of his TV stuff and they've never heard his albums. Like people think of Bill Cosby, his TV stuff. They should have listened to his albums and they might have had a little better idea of where he was going. You know, um, or even the guy that died recently that played Danny Tanner. Oh, he's got this wholesome character and all of that. No, listen
Bob
to his
Saget.
stand up. Yeah, Bob Saget. Oh my God, it's a raunchy stand up comedian. You know,
Oh
but
yeah.
yeah, their stand up was like, holy shit. And of course, the racism they were allowed back then and the ethnic jokes that they were allowed to tell along with the cursing and all that. And then some of these albums, when you realize they're from like the 60s or the 50s, and they were like these bootleg things that somebody would have because you're not just going to go to the store and buy it. You know, everybody's always been bootlegging. And it's something like Red Fox, and he's just getting dirty as hell. You know, and it's like, that guy? Okay.
Yeah, just look at Cheech and Chong.
Yeah.
Chong does a character where he's a black man,
Hmm.
in one of the that shit would not fly. People would
No.
scream blackface.
But how many
Like,
characters have done that? I mean, what's his Jim Carrey has done blackface. I think he did that on Mad TV. You know, um,
I think
there's
he had a character on what was that show before he did Mad TV? What was that show? In Living Color, I think it was called.
no. I was thinking in Living Color, not Mad TV. In Living Color is what I was thinking of. Yeah, he had a character like that on there. Of course, then he had the Chinese woman that nobody wanted. What was her name? The strong woman with the little pigtails,
Yeah, I know what you're talking
like
about,
the
but I can't
Mongolian,
remember.
whatever. You
Yeah, I
know,
can't remember. Yeah, but yeah, I think his most memorable character was Fire Marshal Bill.
Fire
That
Marshal Bill was awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was like that was his character right there. And then like what's his name? The brothers, the two main characters on that show. They did the gay guys
You.
where they did the movie reviews, and then they're like, "Oh, it gets the three snaps."
Oh yeah, the Wayans. Yeah,
The Wayland brothers,
and they
yeah,
got the little hats on top of their head and all that. Him
yeah,
and what the Greer guy, Damon Wayans and oh,
something
what's the other
grew.
guy? Yeah, him. And yeah, you might be able to find Eddie Murphy Raw. I remember watching that, and I don't know. They might not have that on there with the homophobia part on there. So it might be canceled due to that. You know, when he's talking about he's got to keep his ass moving so that the gay guys aren't looking at his ass.
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
like half the shit they did would not go over nowadays.
that was peak Eddie Murphy though. That was with the leather jacket and all that.
That
And
red leather suit he was wearing, the red
right,
leather
right, right.
pants, he had that Michael Jackson outfit on, that bright
Well, yeah.
red leather suit.
Well, that was coming from back. That's before the starter jackets and all that stuff kind of took over. So, like you're coming from the '80s where they had the leather jacket and sorry, can't mute that, can't reach it. But they had the leather jacket, little strap. Everybody had all the straps and zippers all over them, and the fingerless gloves and the boom box.
Yeah, it
The
was like the whole
sweatbands
breakdance
and
scene.
right, yeah, yeah. It's yeah, it was coming from that, and then everything went to like starter jackets and the ball caps and everything. So, and like the first time that I actually met my wife, we were in daycare, and we both thought we were too old to be in daycare, and because we're in elementary school, but it's like latchkey kid days.
Uh,
Well,
uh, Bacon. Yes, once in a while they do run Eddie Murphy Raw on Netflix and Hulu. They do run it off and on.
Yeah. No, she had a big pink boombox, and at the time, I was a kid, and I thought spinning around on a piece of cardboard was kind of cool. And um, well, she's wanting to play Duran Duran or something like that. I think it was Duran Duran in her boombox. And this new group at the time called the Beastie Boys, because this would have
Oh
been
yeah,
like 85, 86.
Beastie Boys.
And she tattled on me and got me in trouble because I kept putting that tape. It wasn't even my tape, it was somebody else's. I kept putting that in her boombox, and we'd start listening to that. It's got like, one that had, Paul Revere and all that stuff on it. And yeah, everybody had a boombox. And you had your hi-fi system at home. I've still got my grandmother's hi-fi that has 8-track. And I remember, changing 8-tracks out in my mom's car. She had one in her Mustang. And I've got working 8-tracks. But, it moved to like this home stereo system that all these furniture and appliance stores would sell you. And you would go and bet on where um, you had your dual tape deck and your speakers. You sat around the room, and you'd have all your albums and your music on top. You still had your record player, and I used to love sitting on the floor going through records at the music store. And then you had your tape, your cassette tapes and stuff, because those were out. And you would copy stuff off of like somebody else's tape. You'd put it in one side. You'd copy the music onto your tape, or you would
Yep.
wait and you'd hope the DJ was really cool, and everybody had those songs recorded off the radio, and you had that track you wanted to listen to in your car. And now everybody just had, they went to like MP3s and their phone, and I don't even think anybody has MP3s anymore. I never had MP3s. I just like skipped that whole thing. And it's like, you want music, you look it up on your phone, or you just look up the YouTube video on your phone, and okay, you listen to it.
Yep.
There's your music.
I have on my phone, and combined with my cloud uh, storage, I have at least like 5,000-6,000 songs that
Yeah.
I can just get into my truck, start my truck, and my phone starts playing music through my truck.
Yeah. And to respond to, I think that's Bacon over there. No, I don't have fingerless gloves. Although everybody had either the Michael Jackson glove or a Freddy Krueger glove back then, or you had both. And back then, yes, I did have some fingerless gloves, and I had bangles, and I had all kinds of stuff.
Sweet.
Because that was also the whole Madonna thing and all that. And I've got an older sister that was really, really into Madonna and collecting Barbies. She still got Barbies from like the 1960s that are worth a lot of money.
Sweet.
And nothing I had as a child would be worth money. They all got destroyed. And,
When I was growing up, cassette tapes were being phased out, and it was CDs. I remember cassette tapes, but for a very short time when I was young, and then it was CDs.
CDs came out when I was in high school, and only rich kids had them. So they tended to get stolen and kicked down the hallway.
Well, they had this little club thing that they would send you flyers in the mail. So my mom ordered me like, I think it was like 50 CDs, and it came with a free CD player for like a penny.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
it was called like CD Club or something like that. I don't remember.
They had those things where they sent you X amount of CDs a month and what have you, and a lot of people had that.
So
A lot of them did.
that's how I got got my CD collection, and I still have all my CDs. Uh, I still have like 2 or 3 CD players, like the CD Walkmans. Like I have the ones that didn't have anti-skip, and then they went to the next generation that had the anti-skip, so you could actually walk and listen to the music as you're walking, and it wouldn't skip
Yeah,
around on you.
we started using that in the cars and all that, and you got the cassette tape adapter. Then I got
Yep.
the bright idea to go to Radio Shack and adapt that cassette adapter where I could plug it into a guitar pedal, like a compressor sustainer or TS9, something like that. And I was playing one of my guitars through the radio in my pickup. And I used to do that in the truck for a long time too. But yeah, it's everything changes so quick
Oh yeah, because
that
like I said, I remember tapes very short. Very. I was very young, and then it was CDs, and then very quickly it went from CDs to the MP3s, and then even that went very quick to you got the MP4s, and I think it was like MP5s. It went up to, and then
mhm.
then you got the iPod Touch, and now you don't even need any of that.
Yeah, and like my music have very wide musical tastes, and I think most of my generation does. Like I grew up, I remember my mom going from hippie to country. You know, you listen to like CCR, Country Joe and the Fish, Mamas and the Papas. And, I'm listening to that stuff in the car. But then we're also listening to classic country music and like Chris Christopherson and Willie Nelson and all kinds of. I love Chris Christopherson, but I can remember her getting dressed up, and this is I think probably about the time Urban Cowboy and all that stuff came out. I think Urban Cowboy and Xanadu and those kind of movies came out, and yeah, does anyone remember Xanadu? Um,
Nope.
Probably not on this end of the political spectrum, but she would be getting dressed up to go to Gillies in Pasadena because at the time we were living in I think Deer Park and North Shore and that area before we moved up to Oklahoma. So she'd go down there before Gillies burned down, and yeah, and of course that's when I remember MTV when it was good, and Headbangers Ball. I remember Pauly Shore as a DJ, and Dweezil Zappa, and of course
See, I
rap music was just really becoming a thing popular wise. And back when they actually could tell a story and it was good.
yeah.
And yeah, so you have all these different genres of music that my generation was exposed to. So all of us generally kind of like, okay, rap music is like, you know, early 90s, late 80s, that area, we kind of like it. We generally like the, classic rock and, most of us like, country through the 80s and what have you. And we look at most of the music nowadays like, what the hell is this shit?
See, my music, it goes from new shit. Like some of the new shit I could get into. So I do have some new stuff. It, there's old school rap, classic rock. Back when I was growing up, it was called new rock. Now it's classic rock now.
Yeah, the first time I heard like Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue, on a classic rock station, I'm like screaming, No, that's not classic rock.
Yeah, that's what I was doing. Like I listened to, the classic rock station that I grew up listening to. And they're playing Papa Roach, they're playing, Three Doors Down, and I'm like,
Somebody should be
uh,
shot for that.
no, no, that's not classic rock. But it's classic
No.
rock now.
And see, like, my wife was more into hair, and there's like stuff where our tastes kind of blend. And I don't mind the hair as much, but I was more into thrash. But of course, we both like Bon Jovi and Bruce Springsteen, and that sort of thing. But she's got concert tickets from watching going Bullet Boys and Rat and Poison and all that. And I was more Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Pantera.
Yeah, Pantera.
I was more on that end, and I remember when and Dimebag Darrell was Diamond Darrell. I remember when they were opening up. I'm wanting to say that was for Skid Row. And I remember when Skid Row and Cinderella were together. I think there's con- Cinderella. It's you just imagine a cat getting neutered on a fence, but it's good music. You know, you're just like row, row, row. So yeah, it's like the heyday of MTV and good music being on TV right before everything went to shit.
Yeah, see, I
And
remember watching MTV back in the day where they actually played music videos, but I was listening to uh like Bone Thugs and Harmony, Tupac. That's what they were playing on MTV when I was watching it.
that
And
was in
then,
the '90s.
they had Beavis and Butthead on there, and then
And
Celebrity Death
Daria.
Match and stuff like that. And then now it's all like reality show.
It's not that there was anything wrong with Downtown Julie Brown or Yo MTV Raps, because they were actually both pretty good. I mean, you could watch the Humpty and everything else on there, and it's pretty cool. But it just marked like, okay, this is right at probably the peak. Where, or actually maybe even a year or two before it, but there was like definitely from here it went down.
Your windows rolled up.
And are my windows rolled up?
Oh no, sorry. I asked my wife because it's starting to rain outside.
Oh, okay. I thought, yeah, this thing's got straight pipes on it. If my windows weren't rolled up, we wouldn't be talking. Uh, but no, it kind of marked the downfall of MTV. And that's
Okay.
when it started turning into more shows, and then you ended up like what was the MTV2, so they had the music over there for a while. And I remember people bringing VHS tapes to school and watching music videos in the locker room that they had recorded on VHS tapes.
I have a lot of experience with like the older technology, records and 8 tracks and Betamax and then VHSs because my grandfather he'd go to the flea market and then bring me like boxes full of this stuff. He's like, here's you something to play with. So I didn't grow up with like 8 tracks or anything like that, records, but I know how to work a record player. I know how to work, an 8 track and all this other stuff.
Did you have a little record player growing up? Or I don't know if anybody in the chat did. It's like there was this little briefcase record player I had. Amy had one just like it. And they had these little tiny records, and I'm not talking about the little plastic thing that's not really a record player. No, this was really a record player. And you had your little record players, your little records, and they all went to like every little golden book, you know, so that you could play it along with the book and it would read along with you. And it wasn't that cheesy plastic thing with the different color record. It was real records. And it closed up, a briefcase, and the outside was, it was hard, but it was almost like a denim material, and it had the needle and everything else. And yeah, I had that, and I used to change records for my grandmother. And I still have Elvis Presley and Willie Nelson records.
I have one of those in storage. My grandpa found it at at a flea mart and brought it to me. It was the record player. It was like a suitcase. You open it up. It had records with it that went along with books. I got it's all in a box in storage. I have one of
Oh,
those.
so you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. I would play with those. I love them, but I've always been around music, and I'm also a guitar player. I've played a guitar since I was able to reach up and detune my grandfather's. And one segment of my family used to make musical instruments, and they still do. There's a violinist that has the last name Watley that I'm related to, and there's some that still make. I think they make guitars now, not violins, but they still make some over in Georgia that I'm related to. But it's like I've got an uncle that plays the drums and guitar. The other one plays guitar. My grandfather played guitar. My grandmother played piano. I got an aunt that played piano. The only one that didn't play any musical instrument was my mother, and she was the artist. And she's got some paintings hanging in a museum somewhere in Houston. But yeah, she still paints though. That's her thing. She paints. And I play anything with strings. So I prefer just a basic acoustic guitar, dreadnought. I don't care. Something I can beat the hell out of. But I have electric guitars too. I went through those stages where everyone was down tuning, and I had 13s on it. Everything else. I used to build guitars, and I've got a bass, but I don't play that as much. It's got strings. I got a violin as well. So I haven't played the violin in a while. And my son can play violin, saxophone, and guitar.
Me and my sister both played flute, and then I went into guitar. I really love playing guitar, but I haven't played one in years. Matter of fact, I sold the last guitar I had.
My wife plays the flute. She tries to learn guitar, but she doesn't have the dedication to get past the finger pain. Because you're going to shred your fingers.
Yeah. You could also do the simple, the taps. You get the basics down, and then you could expand from there.
Yeah, but hers is more, it hurts pressing the fingers down, and it takes a couple weeks, if you've never played before, to get the calluses on the tips of your fingers, where it doesn't really hurt. Like, you're still going to shred them, but where you can really hold the strings down good. And
a lot of people think you got to smash those strings down. You really don't. You just have
depends on what you're doing.
Really true.
A lot of people don't understand that you're playing with your left hand as much as your right. Just as much as playing hard or soft or what have you with your right hand gets a different sound. It gets something different out of the strings. Also, your left hand, how you're playing with it. You're bending the strings. You're touching it lightly. You're hammering on it hard. that feel the strings with your left hand. It's just as important as on the right, you know, where it's hard or it's soft, or you're barely plucking, or you're moving up the neck, or you're down closer to the bridge. Everything has a little bit of a different sound to it.
But yeah, that's true. And then you got to also know how, if you're using your fingers, you got to know how to, what strings to pluck to make sure you're
Hmm.
getting the right sound, because you can't just like hit all the strings at the same time. And, you got to skip strings and
Right, right, right. And down is a different sound than up, and yeah, there's just so many different sounds that you can get out of it, and you can play the same thing in a different way. But then there's also the thing of where, all right, it's one thing to be able to read music, which I don't read music. I can read a little
no,
bit of tablature, but I didn't learn by reading music.
no.
So I learned by listening to an album over and over. Like I can remember getting electrocuted in the garage. I'm barefoot and feeling no pain, we'll say that way. I was very intoxicated. And I mean, I already knew how to play guitar, but where I really learned how to play, I, at the time it would have been a Stratocaster plugged into a Marshall amp. And I'm barefoot, I'm covered in sweat, it's just dripping off the guitar, off of me. I'm electrocuted because it's an electric guitar, and I'm barefoot on a concrete floor in a garage. And I've got Texas Flood going over and over and over, and I'm learning how to play every song on Texas Flood. And then, doing the same thing with, Metallica, which at the time would have been the Black Album, and, Guns N' Roses, and you're just listening to the album. So this was days before the internet where you could just look songs up. So what happened was you learned how to play them, but you learned how to play them wrong. And so you come up with kind of like your own playing style in a way, which a lot of your more famous guitar players, will talk about it, that like, people that were my idols, like, Stevie Vai and Malmsteen and Satriani and Stevie Ray Vaughan, where they're learning how to play something, but they learned how to play it wrong, but they learned how to do something else. So that eventually developed into what would become their style,
Yeah.
And now, some 13-year-old kid pulls up something on a computer and they learn how to play what took you, maybe a month to learn how to play it. But there's also a difference between being able to play it note for note. You look it up and you can play it and it's a song, it's exact, but it doesn't sound right because it's missing that one thing, that emotion, to actually be able to play the song. And it's not going to sound right without it. So I don't know if you get where I'm going with that. It's one. I'm just saying it's one thing to be able to play it note for note. It's another thing to make it sound right, and you've got to have that emotion, and you've got to have that feel behind it to do that.
You got to have the passion for the song. Because you could, motionless play it. You don't have any emotions, anything invested into the song, and you can play it. It sounds good, Or you could be like, it's a song that really like fires you up, gets you, or it's like something that you could relate to, something that's happening in your life. So you got that emotion to play it, and it sounds, 100% better.
Oh yeah, like you're learning how to play this love, and you just had a bad breakup with somebody, and you're at that point of fuck you, you know, or that first time, you know, you play like sad but true, and it's just like the walls vibrate, and it's like, dun, whoa, you know, or anything, or you're just grooving to something, you're coming up with your own shit, So blues is great for that. Jazz is good too. I can do, you know, jazz is good if you got the right people to play with. But then blues isn't far from it, and of course blues is where the roots for all metal is.
I
And
I like listening to BB King. He was
BB
really
King,
good.
Albert King, yeah. Although I have the same kind of problem as BB King, where it's hard to sing and play at the same time. So he'd play a little, he'd sing a little, he'd play a little, he'd sing a little. And I kind of do better that way.
Yeah, I've heard from like like people I know that play music and they have to sing. It's a little bit harder because you got to split your your concentration between two different things, but make sure they're meshing together correctly.
Right. And then playing with the group is totally different. I got used to like playing with my grandfather in church. Okay, and I'm kind of following him for the lead. Well, then you start playing with other people, and I had a chance to be in a couple of bands. And I've played with other people up on stage before. Well, you don't follow the guitar player. You don't follow the other guitars. You
Follow
follow
the
the
drummer.
drums.
Yep.
If you don't follow the drums, you're going to be a step behind everyone else. So then making that transition from, you know, my grandfather's up there with a 12 string and I'm doing, playing, their leads, but I'm kind of following him doing rhythm, you know, for when I do
Yeah.
leads and all that, to actually playing with someone. And it's like, don't follow me, follow him. Okay, cool. And there's a blues musician called Tail Dragger. That's how he got his name. Was, same thing. He didn't know to follow the drums. And so he was a little bit behind everyone. Back when you actually earned your name.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's why I kind
But
of like listening to older music because all like digitally enhanced and processed and made sure everything's at the proper levels and
they could
like I
sing
have
without auto tune.
yeah, there you go, without auto tune. I have uh Black Sabbath, one of their live albums, and if you listen to it, they're live, you could tell like they'll get out of sync for like a split second,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then or like Ozzy will get ahead of the song for like one or two words, and then it's like oh yeah,
I wish
he
I could have
corrects
saw
himself.
Motorhead live.
I,
Yeah, it's you fall out of step, but then you go right back into step. And a lot of
but
times, if you don't play an instrument, or you've never done that before, most people will never know that you made a mistake.
yeah, I like it because cool because it's not like oh shit, let's
It's
fix
not
that,
polished.
yeah, let's fix that, let's speed up the track real quick so it doesn't seem like either
Ah,
someone fell behind one step or got ahead one step. It's like all perfect.
well, it's like punk. It doesn't sound good when it's all polished and everything. It's meant to sound like, a bunch of drunk teenagers, about half in time, screaming about shit, playing instruments they don't quite know how to play yet. You know, you polish it all up and it doesn't sound right.
A bunch of 2-year olds trying to play music and screaming because they
Yeah.
dropped their popsicle on the floor.
Well, some of it, yeah. Some of the stuff doesn't sound good when it's all polished. There's my throat's getting dry. There's just an authenticness, just that live going with it sort of thing
Yeah,
that sounds
whatever
better.
happens, happens. Just flow with it.
Right,
Don't let it, stop you in the middle. And, like, kind of stare at each other like, what the fuck just happened? Just keep going.
right, right. And um, there are some bands that are just better live. And I wish I would have gone to more concerts. Just life didn't work out that way. I ended up going to more concerts as an adult, actually working them on the other end, delivering things. So that's when I did show freight, which is
It's, I,
also weird when they start talking about gun shows and everything. So I have a whole different perspective of them because I used, you'd pick up a booth for some company and it could be a quilting show, it could be a gun show, it could be who knows what. And whatever show you're going to, you've got that booth and they tell you that if you're going to be late, turn around and take it back. The reason being, everything goes in there like a jigsaw puzzle. And a lot of the times they can't carry your booth over everybody else's booth.
yeah, yeah.
And if you're not there within a certain amount of time, they just can't put the booth in there.
See me, uh, concerts, uh, concerts. Going to bars, even parties. I do not like being around a lot of people. That's why, like, I wish I went to concerts and stuff. It's just I don't like it because I find myself more looking around, like, okay, what the fuck's going on? Who's doing what? Who's where? You know, this guy keeps reaching in his pocket and looking around. Sort of thing. I'm not enjoying the concert. I just, it's just, I'm not good with crowds of people.
I don't like huge crowds of people either. And like at the mall, Black Friday, there's no way in hell I'll
Oh,
start
hell
punching
no.
people.
Hell no.
But
Nope.
I do like a mosh pit.
I do like a mosh pit. I
Yeah.
do like a mosh pit, but like I said, I just I find myself looking around, and eventually I work my way to the back of the crowd and just like sit there and watch people. So it's not, I can't enjoy the concert because, you know, I've worked my way to the back of the crowd, and I'm more worried about what these people are doing than what's going on, on stage.
Hmm.
So
I don't
I've
like
only,
being in a crowd of people that I can't punch.
so I've only went to one concert, and that was with my wife for our anniversary. And it was a small concert. It was indoors. It was at a casino, and they they had a shit ton of security. There was You could not look anywhere without seeing a security guard. So I was
This truck,
able to, like, yeah, go ahead.
this truck, the AC's either full blast or none. So I keep turning the AC on for a second and turning it off, turning it on, turning it off. And I also keep forgetting sixth gear in this truck because my truck has a 13 speed in it and this thing has a 10 speed. So it's a different shift pattern. Unless you have a 13 over, then where sixth gear is on a 10 speed, you got your overdrive. But I keep skipping it. I want to do that H pattern.
I, I've drove some trucks, but never like professionally or anything. It was never trained. Basically, my uncle told me, "Hey, get in the truck," and so it was kind of like, "Okay, how the hell did you do this? What's going on here?" Well, get your ass up in the truck and go, and you'll figure it out, or you'll break it.
It's all I've ever really done. I mean, I run heavy equipment too, and even when I ran heavy equipment, I was hauling the equipment, so everything's been tied to a truck somewhere. And I grew up doing farm work. I learned on old 50s and 60s model for like 2.5 ton or 4 ton, whatever, trucks that had, like 5 speeds with a split axle to make them 10. The sides came off to haul hay, you put the sides on them to haul grain and the bed dump, and that's just what I learned to drive on.
Me, I rather
That
run the heavy equipment because I find that a lot better than trying to drive the truck. And like
with my back, I don't know if I want to do a dozer anymore.
I see videos like on Instagram and YouTube. You know, they're showing off their trucks, beautiful trucks, and then they're inside. They're showing them driving, and they got 2 sticks. I'm like, yeah, no, I
That's
could
not
barely.
that hard, actually.
I was like, when my uncle would tell me get in the truck and go. I had hard enough time with just the one. You're gonna try to throw two at me? Hell no.
You're just splitting the stick. You're splitting the gears with the other stick shift. It's like you got your main box and you have your auxiliary. You always shift your main box first. You usually don't take off in first gear. It'll be something like second.
Okay, did it disconnect? I don't know what happened. I don't know if she got disconnected or what. I think she did because I don't hear her.
All right, if any of y'all can hear me, that's probably my phone signal that kicked me out. I'm up in northeast Texas now, and I'm fixing to go through a few areas that are probably going to be a little spotty on phone signal. I mean, a few of the towns it gets better, like around Tenaha, those areas, it's spotty. And then between like Carthage and Atlanta, it gets spotty through there. So if you want to hop back in, hop back in. But that might happen again. Just word of warning. So I've been driving up 59 for 3 hours. But Let me know if y'all can hear me, okay? Since there still seem to be some people out there. And super bad if you want to hop back in, hop back in. See if I can post another link. Okay. All right, that should be another link if anyone wants to hop back in. Anyways, when it cut out, I don't know how much y'all heard of it, but I was explaining. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Bacon. I was explaining how to, what is going on ahead of me? Um, how to drive a twin stick, and it's still basically your main box. You're doing the same thing as all the splitters and everything on the stick I have over here now. And you're just splitting up the gears between, low, direct, and high. And it doesn't matter if it's a triplex or a quadruplex. And a quadruplex is not a 21 speed because fifth gear is overdrive. And you can't use direct and deep reduction or an overdrive. So what it comes out to is an 18 double over, which 4 high is 18, 5 low is overdrive, and 5 high is double over. Oh, cool. All right, well, the signal starts getting bad. I'm not going to know if it starts roboting or what have you. So I'm not really able to hear it on this end. And I've got a fairly new headset. It's a Blue Parrot. I think it's like a XT450S, whatever. And it seems to be working pretty good. And I'm just trying to keep myself awake. And hopefully I get unloaded and I can go to bed sometime today. Well, I'm going to have to sleep before I head anywhere else. I'm supposed to run this load up there, come back, grab another, deliver right back to the same place, then go to Louisiana, pick up another load, and come back. And that should be a week's worth of work. Because it's a day's drive from Houston to Memphis. If that's Monday, then Tuesday drive back. Wednesday drive back up to Memphis, unload Thursday, and load Friday and Louisiana, and then take that back to Houston. So, and then hopefully I would be able to make it home before Saturday, or at least early Saturday morning. My boss is a slave driver, but I can't complain about the money. All right, super bad. If you got to go, then do what you got to do. Thank you for hopping on. It's awesome to have someone to talk to, someone to bounce things off of, makes conversation go better. And it helps out a lot with the chat, being able to see it, especially since I'm literally driving down the road. And I'm also at that age where I have my glasses and I need my glasses to drive, but then it's like you're trying to read something, so you take them off, and then you put them back on and you kind of back at a distance. I think somewhere around 42 or 43 maybe. The warranty on a human body expires and then everything starts breaking. And doctors start caring less and less about the things that are broke. They're just like, it's broke now, and no, we're not going to fix it. It's just the way it is now. So that is the way it is. And I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to talk to myself, though. I do know this guy just flashed his lights at me, so I don't know what's going on up here. Usually that means something's going on. Unless he thought I had my brights on. I don't know. Another road coming into it. Okay. Usually when they flash their high beams at you, it's like there's a cop ahead or something like that. Or I'm not speeding. So, I mean, speed limit's 75. I'm doing 75. So hopefully there's not an accident. I've seen too many accidents. I don't care to see anymore. My last trip going up this way, last week I was supposed to deliver in St. Louis. And then the load changed. And I don't know if the customer didn't want the product or what, or they had to get someone else to buy it, what the deal is. But it changed, and then I had to go over to Jasper, Tennessee. So I got up to Memphis, and then had to go over towards Chattanooga, and then come back. But there was a bad wreck on 30 when I was going up through there. I counted at least 6 18-wheelers. I don't know how many cars. That was fatality. And that was bad. No, don't have all my high beams. I double checked. I'm not flashing them either. I'd have to turn the dome light on to do that. I'm too old for that shit. I ought to write like a Dr. Seuss style book. Like, oh, the things that I have seen. I keep wanting to split the gears. It's one of them things. It's a muscle memory thing because you get used to how one vehicle shifts, you get to the other. I'm used to a 13 speed. This is a 10. There's no splitting of the gears. They're just high and low range. I kind of like a 15 better. No, no, no. Can't do that. How would I explain the ticket to my boss? They're like, you got a ticket for what? Yeah, that's not going to work. I mean, at least it would be getting a ticket for something different. Oh, green light. I hate stale green lights. Like, do I stop? Do I go? Slow down, you might as well go. But then it's like the light changes too late. But then you don't slow down and the light changes and you gotta lock it up. I do like the lights that have the warning on them though, where you're coming up on the light and they've got a sign before you get to it that starts flashing. And that flashing light is like, it's almost like the yellow light, where it's like, okay, if you're at this light and this is flashing, you have this sign, it's flashing, the light's going to change before you get to it. I think all of them should have that so you're not playing a guessing game. It's bad enough that you have to play a guessing game with, you know, the driver coming down a dirt road or something. You see that cloud of dust coming and it doesn't look like it's going to stop. So you get to where you kind of know what most people are going to do, though, especially if you're following them or they go around you. And you just look at them and you know they're fixing to cut across 3 or 4 lanes, or they're fixing to turn, or they're fixing to slow down. It's like you can tell by the back of their head. Uh, Sorry about that, though, Bacon. I don't have an OnlyFans or any of that. Don't think they'd want me. Not unless they got a fugly truck driver fetish or something. 20 years ago, maybe. But it wasn't around then. I still don't know if I'd do that. That stuff sticks with you. You try to go get a job and then somebody pulls that up. I mean, I don't knock it. Do what you gotta do. Hell, I think prostitution should be legal as long as it's between 2 consenting adults. I don't see the problem with it. Don't see the problem with polygamy as long as everyone's consenting. I don't know why anyone would want that many wives, and I don't see how that many husbands would last. So, but that's the whole consent thing. As long as the adults are consenting, I don't have a problem with it. Doesn't mean I have to be involved. It's more you do you. Oh yeah, some places it used to be worse, but the truck drivers wouldn't let you merge over if you were in a car if they didn't get a hooter shot. I've got an aunt that would talk about that. And it's like you'd flash the truck and they're like, okay, yeah, cool, and they let you over. LA used to be one of those places. I don't know if they still are. Probably not. Some some truck driver would get me too. Apparently take responsibility. Yeah, it's what two consenting adults do, I have no problems with. As long as I'm not a part of it, I do not care. And we have too many laws as it is. We don't need any new ones. And we probably need to get rid of half the old ones. How did I get on the topic? I don't know. I've been talking for 3 hours and 17 minutes. So the conversation would go to all kinds of places. I'll be interested to see what it does to my watch time. I kind of started off talking about, or one of the things I started off talking about, which is also why I'm trying the headset out, that sort of thing, is how I want to do the camera setup with my kitchen. I have a small kitchen. At, that's one thing I would like to change about the house, but I don't know how it would work out if I did. And it works. I can do everything I need to do in there. But I want a camera over the bar, and I want a camera over the stove. And I want to be able to switch back and forth between the two. And what I'm thinking is, so I did it kind of one time, with the two cameras, kind of got it to work. Set up the camera over the stove with the computer, and then turn the microphone off at the computer end. And then log in with my phone and use the camera on my phone over the bar. And then I can use this headset for the microphone, and I can go back and forth between the two. And what I need to figure out is how to swap from one screen to the other, where it's not just showing, like the two different ones. Like if you have two people on there, how you just click and you show the one person's screen. I need to figure out how to do that. And that would make it easier. So. Oh yeah, bacon. How we got on that topic. Someone was flashing their high beams at me. And I'm tired. That's how we got on that subject. Titties have been on the subject anyways today. I was bra shopping. So, oh well. But anyways, it's like 5:18 in the morning where I'm at. So the sun's starting to come up. And if you know anything about circadian rhythm and all that stuff, and how the melatonin in the body, when the body starts getting sleepy and the opposite ends of the clock, all that good stuff, this is when you start really getting tired, right before the sun comes over. And what I used to do was, like, say, if you knew the sun was going to come up at 5, you would lay down, make sure, like, say, like 4 o'clock. You'd park, you'd lay down, close your eyes, go to sleep real quick, and you'd set your alarm where you'd wake up at 6. So you got 2 hours of sleep, and you trick your circadian rhythm, and then you get up and you drive. But you don't get any REM sleep doing it that way, and if you do that for too long, you'll start kind of losing your mind. But what I'm probably going to have to do, since I don't have anyone else on the other side to talk to and bounce things off of, is I'm going to have to turn my music up really loud and probably sing along with it to stay awake. And I will spare you that horror of listening to me sing. So I will end the chat. And I thank everyone who is in the audience for listening to me ramble on and listening to me talk to Superbad. But I'm going to have to turn the music up and do something, or I'm just going to get too tired to drive. And the conversation is not going to be too intelligible anyways. So thank you, Edward. Thank you, Bacon and Samantha, Superbad, and Mad Sexy, and everyone else who's been out there for the last 3.5 hours. I really appreciate it, but I'm going to have to do something to stay awake. So I will catch y'all later, and thank you so much.